This is Insider Interviews with Epok Advice, where we sit down with some of the industry's leaders and hear about their vision for the future. Today, I'm joined by April Rudin, a true trailblazer in the wealth marketing and fintech space. April is the founder and CEO of the Rudin Group, a global marketing firm she launched in 2008 to shake up the industry. And that's exactly what she's done. Her firm delivers custom compliant campaigns for top-tier wealth management firms, private banks, and fintech companies looking to connect with high and ultra-high net worth audiences. She has deep expertise in multi-generational strategy, digital media, thought leadership, and lead generation, and is widely known to be one of the top influencers in wealth management and a go-to voice for global publications and keynote speaking at big events. And now we can add published author to her list of credits with her new book coming out in the fall, co-written with Nick Rice, Wealth Management with a Difference. I'm really excited to read that one. April is known for her bold thinking, her sharp wit, and her love of technology, and for never backing down from challenging the status quo. April, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We're just thrilled to have you.
Same, Kendra. I'm so flattered by everything you say, and I would say right back at you. Bold voice, great friend, so knowledgeable about wealth management, and we have known each other, I would say, over 10 years now, so for a long time.
Yeah. And when I went through the thought process of starting Epok, you were one of the champions and cheerleaders. So I wanted to have you as our first guest on this series of interviews to recognize how awesome it is to have a woman in the industry really supporting another woman in the industry. So big thank you to that.
Well, big thank you for even doing it. So there's your bold thinking put into action.
So let's talk about that business. Tell us about the Rudin Group. Tell us about who your clients are and what your mission is.
So I started my business, as you mentioned, in 2008 against a backdrop of what I saw as really stale brands and having to attract a next generation of investors. I always say that I may have been one of the first to say millennial, but I don't want to be the last. So I'm way over the wealth transfer now. I've been talking about it for 16 years. I think it's something that's been going on, and if you haven't noticed it or you haven't heard about it, that's not up to me. You need to find out on your own. So my mission, having two Gen Z kids of my own, was to really help brands think differently and be more bold and move away from the stock photos, the lighthouse, the compass. We're guiding you. You don't know where you're going. We know where you should be going. Just sort of that patriarchal and old-fashioned and stuffy brand standard that most wealth management, family office, asset management, most financial services firms had. So we do three things for our clients. I usually describe our business like this. The first one being messaging. So thinking about things in a different way. How do you find the white space for your clients? What is being said, or how can that be said differently? And how do you differentiate what you offer from what others offer? Whether that's IQ, EQ, or the combination of the two. The second sort of leg of our stool is content creation. And for us, that means a lot of data visualization, infographics, new ways of looking at numbers than a bar chart and a line graph. Most clients are not used to looking at that, don't want to look at that, and don't even understand it. So we try to help our clients think of things and visualize things differently. So that would be on thought leadership, on website copy, just on their entire content strategy. And the third leg of our stool is distribution. So once you have great messages and great content, how do you get it in front of the right people? And that can be any combination of buyers of your services for fintechs or wealth techs, and investors, referral sources. I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast has a good idea of who they want to be in front of also. But that's the virtuous circle for us.
And your book, tell me more about this book and how it came to be and what's the process been like for you to be a first-time author?
So it's been pretty intense. I'm not sure that I would recommend it for everybody. It's been a lot. Wiley came to me and recognized that there were no books on the wealth management industry, especially globally. There are some books on portfolio construction, a few books on ESG that have been largely tossed out here in the US, as you might have noticed. And but nothing on the industry with so many changes as we've been talking about. So if you're a financial advisor or a firm, how are you supposed to sort of put your arms around it, and what's the playbook for being successful in the future? Asset managers, how do they know what's going on in the wealth management industry? Fintechs and wealth techs that want to sell into wealth management, what do they need to be aware of? And so Nick and I went out to, and Nick has also been a friend of mine for about 15 years. I've known him. We went out to 80 plus global leaders
Wow.
and asked them a bunch of questions on where they saw the industry going, what people should know about, and put that wisdom together. So it took us 1 year to put it together. You can imagine it was also a compliance nightmare, getting all the approvals, having all the quote checks, and so on. But really rewarding, and it's on Amazon pre-order now, and it'll be published the end of October.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure to include a link for those who want to get a copy. You know, between the Rudin Group and the book and all of your events that you speak at and attend, you really do get to see the industry gather and think through the future. What are the hottest topics today? What are people focused on? And what are you seeing that's sort of emerging as the next frontier of change?
So obviously that's a great question. I mean, for a long time, I think people were sort of moving sideways, and there was a lot of conversation about things. And I think AI in particular has moved things forward and created some clarity with a variety of use cases across both the operational end, let's say, of wealth management,
Yeah.
marketing and client acquisition, really across the entire ecosystem or client life cycle. So that's been really exciting. I think that people are really talking about how to implement, right, these use cases, how to not only introduce them internally but externally as well, and that's where communication is really important. How do advisors understand how it impacts their daily work? So how does it impact them operationally? And then how can they use it as a tool to make them or give their clients better data, quicker, better data, better analysis, analytics, and so on. So I think that we're really at the beginning stages of that. I hope that people really stop using the term AI, because it reminds me of the very beginning of wealth tech, when everybody talked about wealth tech or fintech, when of course everything is fintech or wealth tech. You know,
Right.
I defy you to find someone who's using an abacus these days. So most technology solutions have AI embedded in it. So I
Yeah.
think it's not worth mentioning anymore.
Okay. So when you picture that future, how do you picture what advice will look like maybe 5 years from now?
So, in one of the interviews that we did, someone brought up the McKinsey number that the wealth management industry is going to be 100,000 advisors short, I think within the next 10 years. And what this particular person said to me that I found quite interesting is that number is calculated by today's standards, Kendra. And so the advisor of the future will be able to serve more clients and serve more clients in a better way. So, of course, there will be a shortage, but it won't be that drastic. So, I don't think that we have a clear view. I think the smoke is sort of still there, and it's clearing out to say how the advisor of the future will operate, what their tools will be, what will the tools of the trade be, and what should clients be prepared. I think that, the advisor shortage is definitely something the industry needs to grapple with and figure out how to bring more people in, and more people of color, more people gender wise, and just more people that look more like the end investors that they're serving. The second area that I think is really important that we should maybe put a pin in and come back in a year is really serving women. So I don't know what you think, Kendra, but I don't think anybody does it really well. I continually tell people it's not a tab on your website. It's not, hiring women as advisors. Women don't need to be served by female advisors. It's actually men that need to learn how to serve women. It's not wrapped in a pink package. It's not anything like that. But, today with women, 51% of the population controlling more money and not only receiving more money through the wealth transfer, it's going horizontally since women have greater longevity than men, but also they're creating more wealth on their own through businesses like yours.
Yeah, it's funny. In my travels, I regularly see teams of advisors who are exceptional at serving women, and specifically who have cracked women in transitions, various different patterns of needs around women when they're making big decisions in their life, whether it be through divorce or death of a spouse or a windfall in a business. What I always find so surprising is how little systemization is being reabsorbed by these firms. So you may have a team
Yeah.
in one of your locations who's doing an exceptional job, but for whatever reason, none of that gets reabsorbed as best practices. So it's one of the use cases that I'm often encouraging clients to use when we start to think about how to use technology and data differently, and how to design much more fit for moment type of experiences. So the other thing that I think is really interesting is something you just said there. There isn't a lot of evidence that the way to solve serving women is to have more women. And I think that's there's sort of two parts of that, because in one breath, you and I both, I think, agree we need more female advisors.
Yes.
And then we also agree we need a more bespoke and thoughtful and relevant experience for female clients. But the two are not the solution to each other. That they're not actually direct causation. There's some correlation, but it's not causation. So it's a really interesting thing, because a lot of times teams just want to jump to the next level and be like, oh, we'll just get some women advisors in and we'll solve all of this.
Yes.
Or we'll just design an offering based on what we think a woman wants, and we'll hope that solves everything as it relates to acquisition. So I do think it's a really interesting area.
I mean, to me, that the firms that crack that nut and then at scale will be the ones that really win. I mean, every year for April Fool's Day, I feel like doing a press release that's a fake press release announcing that testosterone wealth management firm, we only serve men, right? Why? Because we know cigars and fast cars. Like, that's the only way for people to realize how ridiculous. I mean, imagine if a firm had a tab that said men, right? Men click here, women click here.
Right.
Like, it's just, it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. So I think that firms need to learn how to message to those attributes that women find appealing, right? Team building, philanthropy, legacy planning, right? The things that are important to women without labeling it, this is for women.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then, obviously the same issue of customizing the value proposition comes up when we talk about the next generation of investors.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing from emerging demographics, some of the younger investors. We spent years, both you and I, talking nonstop about millennials and their needs for wealth management, and it was widely ignored until it was 100% absorbed. What are we going to see from this next group, and what should firms have in their mix as they think about modernizing advice for Gen Z and beyond?
So I think given world politics and just general volatility in markets and so on, I think the next generation, which by the way can be anywhere from age 18 up until their 50s, really, Gen X is the next inheritance, right? It's not going to 18-year-olds. So I think that's an important distinction. Um, but these people are really more conservative than what people think, especially the younger ones. I don't think that they're as trading oriented in general as what people think. So, not as Robin Hood oriented, but more big brands, big banks, more solid brands. I think they're more attracted to. You know, in the US, we have that whole RIA market. But that has really shifted in terms of focus and direction. So, advisors and groups leaving wirehouses used to think that they could put out a shingle and build their own business, but realized they had no tech stack, they had no infrastructure, they didn't really know how to run a business. And so the aggregators and curators, right, have banded together all of these RIAs, which are really
Yeah.
looking more and more like a mini wirehouse or like a mini bank. So they could be more advantageous for advisors because they're giving up, you know, a lesser piece of the pie, but they're still becoming part of larger organizations. And I think that's what younger people are going to be looking for. I don't think that standalone independent business on the corner, the rolling, I always call it the Rolling Rock RIA, where I rolled rocks with my grandfather and, you know, now I roll rocks with my kids. I think that's going to have difficulty attracting and retaining clients.
Yeah. And so, for a while there, the industry thought the solution would be subsequent generations of robo. We've obviously seen some real shifts in that world. And what do you think is going to replace and make scalable access to advice and access to the market? Do you still believe in a next generation of robo? Do you see something different replacing it? And how do we keep that lower cost opportunity alive?
So that's a great question. As I mentioned when we first started chatting, I just came back from Europe, and the self service model is much more popular in Europe than it is in North America. It's much more accepted and much more sought after. And it's also used as a form of reducing CAC, client acquisition costs. So firms are using it as a way to onboard new clients and then moving them up to a higher tier once they have larger portfolios. So you see that with Robinhood buying Trade TMR, for example, and having the ability to custody Revolut, which is in Europe, moving people from smaller account sizes to larger account sizes and more profitability by adding more services. So I think they're bringing on more loyal customers. But I think to me, it speaks back to brand, having a solid brand that attracts people and one that people value and that has some brand equity to it. So people can understand it's going to be there, right, for the long term, and that it's not going to blow away when the market's down.
So in my travels, I work with boards and executive teams on their strategies and on how to get more out of the spend that they have as it relates to advisor productivity and transformation. If you could join me in some of those conversations, what would be your nudge to the leaders of today's incumbent players, especially those in North America?
That's a great question, Kendra. I think that there's still some complacency, and where you see a lot of these statistics that you formerly in some of your former positions produced. I think there's still some unhealthy, I'll call it, skepticism in leadership, thinking that it doesn't mean their firm, it means someone else, when it does mean them, right? These are industry trends, and so I think that even though there's been, as I called out, and I think you did too, some change and some important change, I don't think that it's happening quick enough or on a broad based scale enough to not only operationalize and impact operations, but attract next gen talent. You know, they want to work at an organization that has a really great tech stack and offers them something, by which they can learn. So I think that I would say to, most leaders, now, right now is the time.
Yeah, increase the urgency, make sure you're
Yes.
focused, don't be distracted.
And don't think it's someone else. It's not the advisor next door. It's you.
Just to close out our planned questions, I'd love for you to tell me, three things that make you really energized and excited about the future of advice.
It is the opportunity, right? There's the opportunity because there's a supply and demand issue. So where supply and demand aren't meeting, there's an opportunity to fill that gap. So that is, really exciting. As I mentioned before, I think the opportunity for women, both women as advisors, and you called it out right and straight, Kendra. So separating out females as advisors and females as clients, because those two are not necessarily connected. That is really important there. And then I think the third one would be figuring out what actually the job description and what the advisor of the future looks like. Is it as it moves from sort of Fred Flintstone into the George Jetson era? So what does it really look like? And how do clients actually get served better?
Great. And if anyone wants to track you down, April, we know you're on LinkedIn, but how do people find your business, your book, and what can we do to help them get connected to you?
Well, thank you, Kendra. So I want to go back and ask you those three questions, though, too. So what are the three things that get you excited?
Oh, I'm definitely excited about the opportunity to take some of the innovation that we're seeing and direct it beyond just acquisition or the front end of the value chain. I think we've had a real period of digital transformations that didn't actually transform core businesses. And I'm seeing the next wave really focus on modernizing operations, modernizing the core, taking costs and work out, lowering the cost to serve, which is something we have been negligent on. So that's one thing I'm excited about. I'm definitely excited about the broader possibilities related to personalization at scale, moving away from like persona based or assumption based views on how to service sub segments or moment in time, and going right back to the heart of what's actually working and how do we systematize it. And I'm very, very interested in the next generation of advisors and what they're going to need and what they're going to bring. And I meet with so many advisors as you do, and I just see so much awesome potential in the industry. So while the stats talk about succession as a structural issue or a demographic shift, what I'm seeing is a generation of people who are passionate about helping families and who are learning from the best of what worked in the past, but way more open to change, way more open to adoption, which is one of the things that's been making it difficult for the business to modernize. So those would be the ones that I would pick.
Yeah, no, those are all good ones. I agree with you. The next generation of advisors are planning focused, right? They're
Right.
helping focused. They're not trading focused, right? They're not investment focused. They're not all about returns,
Yeah.
but they're definitely coming at it from a different point of view, and that's a good thing.
Okay, so tell us how to reach you
Oh.
and how to find you.
So April at therudingroup.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Our book, Wealth Management with a Difference, is available on Amazon pre-order now, and it will be published October 27th, 2025. So
That's
thank
so
you.
exciting. I can't wait to be in the same city with you so we can celebrate the book in person. Thank you so much for joining today, April. It means a lot to me to have your friendship and your support. And I always really value your perspective.
I appreciate our friendship too, and I am honored to be with you on your podcast, and great to see you build your business, Kendra.
We always love talking to April. She's full of anecdotes and always wants to push the status quo. Again, hearing her perspective on women, the next generation, digital, and the importance of keeping a global perspective, all great reminders for those of us hoping to modernize wealth management.